Get started here. I appreciate everyone's attendance, and I want to welcome all of you to the ISO 9001-2015 Preparing for a Successful Transition webinar. My name is Joseph Krolikowski, and I am the Technical Director of Perry Johnson Registrars. A couple of things for you to be aware of. All of the participants are in mute, and if you have a question, we're going to definitely make time for questions today. There is a question portion of your dashboard that I'll direct you to make use of. This will enable me to read your question and try to answer it as thoroughly as possible. We've actually, as part of our presentation today, we've got some answers to frequently asked questions, and we've also prepared a report on some frequently asked questions. So hopefully we can answer your questions either that way or we will definitely make time at the end of the presentation. Let's go over our topics for today. We're going to review where these standards come from, what the history of these standards is. We're going to discuss why the standard is changing and why it's changing again. We're going to review the timeline, both where we've been and where we're going. We're going to have an in-depth review of the key changes to the standard. We're going to discuss the implications to your current system, examine whether there is a need to overhaul your system. As I mentioned, we're going to have an FAQ session during our presentation. I've got some final points to make, and then we will definitely make time for your questions. So let's begin with a review on where the standards come from. The ISO is an acronym. It's the International Organization for Standardization. It is a collective that's made up of numerous international members. Now within the ISO, each of the individual standards is assigned a technical committee, or TC, both for authorship of the standard and for providing sanctioned interpretations of that standard. Now the technical committee that's been assigned to ISO 9001 is TC 176. Now TC 176 includes members from each of the major industrialized nations. The U.S. representatives to TC 176 are drawn from the American National Standards Institute, or ANSI. Let's talk a little bit about why the standard is changing. Why are we going to a 2015 revision? It's been recognized that the industries that use ISO, these industries in many cases have evolved. They're going to continue to evolve. There's changing needs for certification in these industries. There's a desire amongst the framers of the standard to see the utilization of the standard continue to grow. We've seen ISO 9001 be utilized in a variety of industries, and obviously there's a vested interest in that continuing to grow and continuing to expand into new areas, new sectors. There's been a specific effort on this go-round to simplify some of the language that's been used to aid in understanding and consistency, and that's going to extend not just to systems but to audits as well. And one of the more important goals on this particular update is a desire to have strong cross-compatibility between standards. There's a lot of companies out there that have more than one certification. You might have ISO 9001 for your quality system and ISO 14001 for your environmental system. Now, up to this point, a lot of companies have found the only way that they can make that work is to have two sets of manuals, two distinct systems. With this rewrite, the idea is that a company should be able to have an integrated system, whether it's two standards or three or more. In some cases, companies have numerous certifications, and the ISO is very much interested in making that process as straightforward and as easy as it possibly can be. The TC-176 committee chairperson, Nigel Croft, recently expressed some ideas about what the committee views as the key features that ISO 9001 should have. And he used the word foster for each of these. ISO 9001 should first of all foster a process approach. This is manifest in a number of ways. A systemic way of running your company, running your process. Management being both involved and leading. Processes having results, showing results, taking action based on those results. Consistency of processes and so forth. This was obviously a switch many years ago from things being rooted in elements and things being rooted in the verbiage of the standard. ISO 9001 is still very much rooted in the cycle of plan, do, check, act, and we see this both at the process level and at the overall system level. The whole idea that things don't happen by accident in an ISO 9001 quality system. Things are planned, we take action, we look at the results, we respond to those results, and so forth. The new idea that's being introduced in ISO 9001 2015 is the whole idea of risk-based thinking and preventing undesirable outcomes. We've got a number of slides today that are going to dig into this. It is a new idea, but it is based on a number of existing ideas, a number of existing things that have already been in place. We're going to take a minute now and have a look at the timeline for transition. The ISO 9001 standard, it's in the midst of a long-term process. This goes back some years now, and we've got a little bit yet to go before we're finished. Let's begin with where we've been. June 2013 saw the issuance of the committee draft. That had a very limited distribution. That was more or less for the TC committee itself. The phase that we are in right now began in May 2014 with the publication of the Draft International Standard, or DIS. This is actually a document that's available for purchase on the ISO.org website. Now, in terms of where we're going, our future targets here, in July of this year, we should see the publication of the final Draft International Standard, or FDIS. From there, we're projecting September 2015 for publication of the finished standard itself, and then looking way ahead to September 2018, all ISO 9001-2008 clients should have successfully transitioned to the new standard. So in terms of where we are right now, we are in the DIS comment integration phase. When the DIS 9001 standard came up for a vote, it received a 90% approval rating when it was voted on. This means that the planned July 2015 publication for the FDIS is all but assured. Right now what they're doing is incorporating all of the comments from all of the voting members, both those that approved and those that rejected the DIS. Now the idea and why this process is taking so long, they want to make sure that when the FDIS is published, that it should address all of the concerns and will then enable a very swift approval vote to proceed to full publication as ISO 9001 in September. So we're on track. We're absolutely on track for September 2015 for seeing the new standard. There are a few things to keep in mind, however. The transition timeline, the 3-year transition timeline, does not take hold until the standard is actually published. So that September 2018 cutoff is obviously dependent on the standard being published on time. If it ends up being that it's not published until October, well then your cutoff would be October 2018. Another item that we're not yet clear on is whether it's going to be necessary to add additional audit time for the transition audit process. A lot of these things are going to be dependent on the new standard and also the work that's being done on the ISO 17021 standard, which is the standard that the registrars have to abide by. Obviously, if we see the publication in September 2015, the September 2018 cutoff is going to mean that registrars like PJR will have to establish a cutoff date for the clients to perform a transition audit. Those decisions have not been made here within PJR. We simply don't know logistically how we're going to approach that. I suspect what is likely is that we will establish some date, 3 months out, 4 months out, something of that nature, where if you want to ensure that you do not have a lapse in certification, you must complete your transition audit by such and so date. So say that ends up being May 1st of 2018. Obviously, as soon as we know when that's going to be, we will definitely let all of you know. Let's take a second here now and review the key changes. One of the things that you may have heard about in relation to the new standard is this Annex SL. Let's take a few minutes and talk about what that is. Annex SL, it's also been called the high-level outline, Annex XL. It is a part of a larger ISO publication. And that publication is called the ISO IEC Directives Part 1, Consolidated ISO Supplement Procedures Specific to ISO. It is quite simply the standard about how to write a standard. And we've provided a link here at the bottom of the page. Those of you that are planning to keep these slides, you can definitely follow that link and read the ISO Directives Part 1 on its website. It's a lengthy standard. There's a lot there. And Annex SL is a portion of this very large document. Annex SL was written back in 2012. It was written by a special committee, the Joint Technical Coordination Group. And what it is a 10-section blueprint, if you will, for the authorship of all of the ISO family of standards. Now, what Annex SL does is it promotes commonality in terms, commonality in definitions. There's so many of these terms that are used over and over again in the various standards, things like organization, supplier, customer. There's no reason that these terms can't be defined in exactly the same way for all of the ISO family of standards. And this is a big part of what Annex SL is trying to promote, is this idea of commonality. Now the idea, the plan rather, is that we will transition all of the ISO standards to an Annex SL structure by 2016 or 2017. And obviously that's a lot of standards. Lots and lots of standards are going to have to go through their own transition process with their own technical committees and their own member bodies weighing in on what's important and what should be accomplished in the transition process. We're going to take a look now at the 10-section structure that's represented by Annex SL. The first 3 sections are what you can kind of think of as non-auditable content. Obviously it's important, but in terms of issuing audit findings and conclusions, if you will, Those first three sections are non-auditable, very similar content-wise to what we have in the ISO 2008 standard. We've got scope, who does this standard apply to, normative references to the other support standards, and the terms and definitions. The auditable content begins in Section 4 with context of the organization, talking about the scope of your system, establishment of a quality management system. Continues in Section 5 with a new term, leadership. We're going to see that a lot of what's in here is already present in ISO 2008. In Section 6 we have planning, risks and opportunities. This is where the risk requirement is most directly included. Objectives, that's a familiar item. That's been included in Section 6. In Section 7 we have support. This is where we will find ideas related to resources. Competency is included here. There's a new term, documented information. We'll be reviewing what that's all about shortly. So with Sections 4, 5, 6, and 7, these are very much support items. These are foundation items, if you will. The heart of the standard is in Section 8. Section 8 is called Operation, and for the most part, your day-to-day activities as a company are going to be found here in Section 8. All of your sales to your customer, purchasing activity, production activity, non-conforming product control, all of these day-to-day activities, Section 8 is where these are going to be found. Section 8 obviously is the longest of the sections in the new standard and in Annex SL. The standard concludes with Section 9, performance evaluation, some familiar items here, internal audit, management review, and then finally we have improvement, where we find nonconformity, corrective action, and then the more broadly defined term improvement. Let's dig in a little deeper now into these key changes and just give you a sense of where the new content resides and what's in that new content. First of all, the current DIS standard, as it's been presented, has a greatly expanded terms and definitions section. For those of you that have a copy of ISO 9000, the 2005 Fundamentals and Vocabulary document, nearly all of those definitions have been moved into the 9001 standard. Now, it's not yet clear if that's going to be the case when the final standard is published, but as of right now, the DIS has all of these terms and definitions within it. It's also got the newly rendered quality management principles. These were formerly found in ISO 9004, and there are 7 of them now. 2 of the former 8 have been combined. And these quality management principles have been expanded just a bit by the adding of a sanctioned rationale. And the idea here, of course, is to give you some insight into what the ISO is trying to accomplish and promote by that principle. Now the DIS, because of this additional content, it's a lengthy document. It's just over 50 pages. But as I mentioned earlier, only 17 of those pages represent auditable or certifiable content. Now as to ISO 9000 and ISO 9004, we've been told that both are going to be updated in the near future, but as to the timelines for those updates and the planned content for those updates, those things we do not know at this time. Let's take a minute now and discuss the risk requirement. I know this is a very significant update, a very significant change. I know there's been a certain amount of heartburn associated with this new requirement. The term risk appears 18 times in the current draft standard. It's all over the draft standard. It is a topic that comes up over and over again. And based on that, what we've concluded is that the identification and management of risk, it's being viewed in much the same light that continual improvement was way back when ISO 2000 was published. This is not just a condensed activity. This is something that is system-wide. Now, they've also gone to great lengths to emphasize that you don't have to have a formal documented risk management process. You've got to be prepared to show that you're managing risk within your quality system. But in terms of having a great deal of formality associated with it, that's not going to be required. Risk aversion is going to be one that affects all of the areas of your quality system. Let's take a look at the actual verbiage that's used in the standard for the primary clause. Clause 611 reads as follows. When planning for the quality management system, you shall consider the risks that are referred to in section 4.1 and the requirements referred to in 4.2 and determine the risks and opportunities, you'll note that both of those terms are used here, that need to be addressed to give assurance that the quality management system can achieve its results, to prevent or reduce undesired effects, and to achieve continual improvement. So as you can see, it's not just negative events here. This is also being viewed very much as planning for success, planning for improvement, as well as the possible pitfalls of a decision. 612 then says, you shall plan actions to address those risks and address those opportunities. You shall plan how to integrate those actions into your system and evaluate the effectiveness of those actions. Actions taken to address risks and opportunities shall be proportionate to the potential impact on the conformity of products or services. Now, one thing I really want to emphasize here, and this next slide is going to help put that over. There's a number of things that you are already doing under ISO 9001-2008 that are going to help you be ready for this risk management activity. Let's take a look at some of these. Clause 5.6, Management Review. You're already looking at your overall quality system. You're discussing customer complaints. You're discussing process performance. You're discussing audit results, and you're looking forward. Clause 5.6.3 talks about outputs from management review, including decisions and actions. That's all risk management. That's definitely activity that's going to help you avoid problems later. 7.2.2, review of requirements related to the product. You're assessing customer expectations. You're looking at what are we doing now? What have we got in place now? Do we have to make changes? Do we have to improve our capabilities to be able to meet these requirements from the customer? 8.5.3, preventive action. I know there's been some chatter that preventive action has been removed from the standard. I argue that preventive action has been expanded in the new standard. An assessment of potential problems with actions taken to avoid those issues in the first place. And then finally, training under 622. The whole idea of assessing competency needs and taking steps to ensure that personnel are fully qualified, fully competent. You're already, those of you that are ISO 9001-2008 certified, you're already doing a number of things that are going to help you be ready for this risk management requirement. Let's continue our examination of the changes in the standard, and we'll continue with key changes in terminology. The terms procedures, records, and documents have all been eliminated and have been replaced with the phrase documented information. The standard is trying to be more inclusive. There's a number of companies out there that exist almost solely in a computer system. And so these kinds of companies aren't going to have necessarily all kinds of paper documents, all kinds of hard copy records. The term documented information is being viewed as more inclusive. The references to product have all been replaced with the phrase products and services. Now, if you look at Clause 3 of ISO 9001-2008, it already says wherever the term product appears, it can also mean service. So again, we're trying to recognize that there's a lot of different companies out there, those with and those without a tangible product. Management responsibility has become leadership. This pushes the concept of management leading by example and involvement, not just directing that activities are done. Continual improvement has evolved. It's now under a larger banner simply called improvement. The idea here is that continual improvement is important, but it is not the only aspect of improvement that a company strives for in their system. You can have breakthroughs, reactive changes, reorganizations. All of these things are part of a larger picture of improvement for the quality system. Suppliers are now going to be referred to as external providers. Again, the whole idea of accommodating a service organization. They've eliminated some required content in some interesting places. ISO 9001-2015 will not specifically require work instructions, a procedures manual, or a quality manual. Now, what this means is if an organization chooses to pursue certification without those documents, it can be done. However, bear in mind that the auditors are going to have to verify that all of the requirements of the standard have been fulfilled, that you've defined the scope of your system, for example, that you have an established process for non-conforming product control, that you have an established process for assuring the competency of your staff, and so forth. Now, if you can do all that without procedures, if you can do all that without a quality manual, fantastic. We will accept that approach, and we will verify that what you're doing is consistent and effective. The management representative has been eliminated from the standard. Now, in practice, what this means is they want to see that the management of a quality system does not fall on one person's shoulders. It was never intended to be something that was just done by one person, even though in practice that is sometimes how it works out. So the responsibility, the title is gone. The responsibility is now on the shoulders of the leadership of the company. Now, in practice, for a lot of companies, this is already how it's done, and this is the ideal arrangement, of course. The permissible exclusions have been removed, and the idea here is that all of the requirements of the standard are going to be reviewed as part of the audit process. Companies in the past that have claimed a permissible exclusion, those items were always going to be subject to verification at each audit. A company that claims exclusion from design, for example, we still verify at every audit that design is not being performed. So they've taken that into account, and they've removed the phrase permissible exclusions. Companies are now going to be encouraged to claim non-applicable for the items that don't apply to them, things like design, etc. Now let's have a look at the actual sections of the standard and kind of call out the new content in terms of new questions being asked. As I mentioned earlier, sections 1, 2, and 3 are not specifically auditable. So in section 4, the context of the organization, we have a lot of content that was formerly found in ISO 9001-2008 section 4, Quality Management System, with the following key new questions. What purpose does the organization serve, and who does it exist for? Who are the key stakeholders in this organization? What is the grand purpose of this organization? In section 5, leadership, We have a lot of content that's already been present in Section 5 from ISO 2008, but there are some important new questions. Has management made itself accountable for the effectiveness or the lack of effectiveness of the quality system? Has management ensured that the quality policy and quality objectives are consistent with the strategic direction of the company? Has the quality management system been integrated into the business processes? The idea here is that the quality system and the business system, the money part of your quality system, of your business, are these items on the same path? Are they sharing the same goals? Are they moving towards a common goal? Or are they operating at cross purposes? This kind of analysis, this kind of assessment is going to now be subject to audit under Section 5 of ISO 2015. Section 6, Planning for the Quality Management System. This is obviously where the risk management requirement is called out. Have the risks, have the opportunities been considered? Have we taken action for those risks? With objectives, with quality objectives, who's going to be responsible? Have we established a target date? What are we trying to accomplish by way of these objectives? These are kind of expansions on what was required previously. Section 7, support. A lot of content here from Section 6, resource management. Some items from Sections 4 and 5. There is one slightly new area of content under competency, where the organization is asked to consider what are your changing needs, what are your trends, and is your competency base ready for what's coming? This is very much risk-oriented. Is our staff ready for what's coming down the road? Section 8, operation. Our analysis has concluded that it's very similar to Section 7, product realization. Some parts of Section 8, there is no significant new content in Section 8. So despite being the largest of the sections, there is not a whole lot of new content here that you shouldn't already have. That's also very much true for Section 9, monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation. I'll mention that management review has been moved into this section here. This is actually, I believe, a much better place for it than where it's at currently. Again, no significant new content. And that's also true for Section 10, improvement. We very much have already had these requirements in place for some time, the ones that are represented by Section 10. So hopefully what you're starting to see here is the changes to the 9001 standard are minimal. They really are minimal, and our conclusion is that these are going to be manageable changes. Even risk is not such a new item. If you consider the fact that preventive action and the other items that I called out earlier have all been a part of the ISO 9001 standard for a long time. In preventive action's case, it's been a part of ISO since it was first published. Let's take a look now at the implications of the new standard, and probably your biggest concern, your biggest worry, do we have to overhaul what we're doing? Absolutely not. We have seen that the TC-176 committee, they've said multiple times they want to improve the inclusiveness of the standard. You can't tell 1 million worldwide registered companies you've got to overhaul your system and somehow still have an inclusive standard. It doesn't work that way. So there's been a very deliberate effort to make this as straightforward a transition process as possible and keep all of what was working in the current ISO 9001-2008 standard. So what does this mean in practice? We've told you you don't have to have a quality manual anymore. But if you already have a quality manual and it fits your business, keep it. If your procedures are effective, if you're using them, definitely keep your procedures. If your current quality policy, your current quality objectives, if these are all well known and adding value, absolutely keep those intact and keep them just as you have them now in terms of their content. If, on the other hand, you have a set of procedures that you use on audit day and at no other time, and you've got other mechanisms in place to control your processes, perhaps you don't need those procedures anymore. These are going to be some of the decisions that you have to make as you continue in this transition. Let's take a look at some frequently asked questions from past presentations. We've had a number of good questions as our presentations have been given, and I'd like to share with you what we've been able to learn. One question that has come up: will our staff have to complete transition training? Now, this is going to be obviously dependent on how extensive the revisions you make to your system, how extensive that is. You will be expected to provide some form of transition training. At a minimum, you will need to provide awareness training. The companies that are ISO 9001 certified, there is an expectation that the members of the company are aware of the ISO certification, that they participate in the quality system. So at a minimum, awareness training will need to be provided. You will also need to be prepared to show that you've assessed the standard's impact on your processes and personnel. We've actually got a more detailed list of steps you can take coming up in just a few minutes here. It is entirely conceivable that the majority of your staff are going to feel no effect from the transition to ISO 9001 2015. Folks in production, folks in the quality department, the person that issues your purchase orders day to day, these folks are going to see no real significant difference in being an ISO 9001 2015 certified system. Now, your internal auditors, will they have to complete transitional training? One thing to bear in mind about internal auditing: it's viewed in the same light as any other competency within your system. If you read section 622A of ISO 2008, it says the organization will determine competency requirements. That's not changing as we transition to ISO 2015. You are still going to have to determine what competencies are required. You're still going to have to determine what methods are going to be needed to achieve those competencies. In other words, it's up to you to decide the extent to which transition training for your internal auditors is going to be needed. If you've got a seasoned team of internal auditors, folks that have been auditing your system for a number of years, they should be able to complete a period of self-study and transition to the new standard. Obviously, the competency of your auditors will be judged by the effectiveness of your audit process. That is not changing. That's always been the case. We've been asked a number of times about the other standards, AS 9100, TS 16949. Are these standards going to be updated as well? At the present time, we know that all of the major sector standards, including TS, AS, and TL, they've all indicated that they're planning to transition. They're planning to continue their alignment with ISO 9001. As to the timelines for those updates, we simply do not know. ISO 9001 2015 is not going to be out until the fall. I suspect that each of the committees associated with these other standards want to see the final standard before any kind of extensive work is done on an update to the sector standards. 2016 seems likely, but it is not at the moment definite for any of those standards. The only major standard that we know for sure is not going to continue its alignment to ISO 9001 is ISO 13485. ISO 13485 is in the midst of its own update. They are targeting early 2016 for publication. It is not going to be aligned to ISO 9001. It is not going to be rooted in Annex SL. Should we get certified now or wait? Interesting question. And let's take a minute now to kind of consider the ramifications of a decision one way or the other. I'm sure we've got some folks on our presentation today that are in the midst of implementing a new system, and they want to know, is there still value in registering to ISO 9001-2008? Obviously, we can't tell you one way or the other, but do bear in mind that we've still got 3.5 years of usability left in ISO 9001-2008. Additionally, please bear in mind that those first few audits at the end of this year to ISO 9001-2015 are going to be difficult. It's going to be a transition for the auditees and for the auditors. With the passage of time, it's going to get easier. It's going to go smoother. We have to get through the bumps in the road, so to speak. Somebody has to be first. But I would venture that a company that's already certified to ISO 2008 and has been for some time will have a much easier time of it transitioning than someone that's starting from scratch. But again, the final decision on that is yours to make. As I mentioned earlier, there is a set of steps that have been kind of specified. The International Accreditation Forum, the IAF, which is partnered with the ISO, they've published an informative document. It's ID9, and it includes a 7-step process for a successful transition to the standard. First, a full review of the standard to make sure that you've identified any gaps that exist. They recommend an implementation plan, and they also recommend that that plan have specific assigned responsibilities. They recommend that all of your documents be updated to reflect new or revised processes. They definitely recommend awareness and transition training, a full system audit followed by a management review, including corrective actions for any internal audit findings, and then obviously coordination with your certification body, with PJR, on planning then for the official transition arrangement. One final point that I want to make on your existing documentation, your quality manual, your procedures, and so forth. Now more than ever, it's important for you to be certain that your documentation works for you first and foremost. This is a process-based standard, and it has been for some time. These are your processes. You own them. You need to be certain that the documentation supports your processes and supports your quality system. Now, if that means that you renumber the titles of those documents, if that makes it work better for you, then do so. Now, obviously, the internal references, for example, if your internal audit procedure says that it's been written to support Section 8.2.2 of ISO 9001-2008, obviously those references will have to be corrected. But in terms of the title of your procedure, the number that you've assigned to your procedure, those things will not have to be changed. It will not be mandatory that those things be changed. So please do bear that in mind. Obviously, it's going to be important for you to work with your auditor. Your auditors, in many cases, are going to have many years of experience coming to visit you at your company. We do encourage you to work with your auditor and let them be the experts for you in terms of transitioning to the new standard. We do believe this is an exciting time for certification. This is a beneficial update to a standard that's been around a long time, and it's got a long track record of contribution. PJR is going to continue to provide you with timely updates on this transition process. We're going to endeavor to make this as smooth for all of you as we possibly can. Here's a couple of links for you. I've prepared a side-by-side comparison between ISO 9001-2008 and the current DIS 9001 document. That's available at the link here. As I mentioned earlier, we've also prepared an FAQ report, and we've provided a link for that as well. All right, I want to thank all of you for your time today. I do hope that the presentation has been beneficial. I'm going to go ahead and open up the question pan here, and we will begin the process of answering your questions. Okay, we've got some questions on accessibility to the presentation. That is, we will definitely have this presentation available for download shortly after it's been concluded. Let's see what else we've got here. Okay, we've already discussed the transition to the new requirements. Okay, let's see what our question is here. Just a moment. Okay. Michelle McRoberts, if we're already reorganizing and updating our current quality manual and want to go ahead and reorder the manual to coincide with the new version of the standard, can we do that this year, even though we're due for a recertification audit on ISO 2008 in August? Will it have a negative effect on our recertification? Michelle, I don't believe so. I think because all of the existing content from ISO 2008 is present in ISO 2015. If you're already completing a reorganization, so long as you can direct your auditor to where one topic or another is to be found, I don't see that as a negative. Okay, Eric Bieberich, I do hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, asks, what is ISO 13485? That is the medical devices standard. It's actually a publication of the ISO and the AAMI. And there's more information on that on the AAMI website. Okay, Mike Reardans asks, under internal auditing, with the elimination of the management representative position, is it possible that a company could have a single individual doing the complete internal audit? Mike, I don't believe that that's going to be possible because the verbiage in the standard that asks, it still directs that you cannot audit your own work. So certainly if the person is employed by the company in some capacity or another, it's going to be difficult to show that that person's work has not been audited. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it does not seem like a likely workable scenario. Okay, Derek Patterson asks, is it going to be possible to include ISO 9001 with ISO 13485 in a single quality manual? Derek, I don't believe that that's going to be impossible, but based on what we have heard about the update to ISO 13485, it's going to be difficult. So I'll say not impossible, but not easy either. Okay. All right. Derek Vance asks, with financials being part of the leadership element, how in-depth will the financials be? If a company does not disclose financial information, can they claim not applicable for this specific area? Derek, I don't believe that the implication is going to be let's open your books and look at your numbers. That's not the implication at all. I think the idea here is that the strategic decisions that are made by the company, and this may be manifest in things like capital expenditures, training budgets, things of this nature, are these things in sync with the quality system? Are those decisions being made along a similar path, or are they operating at cross purposes? But in terms of are we going to be digging into the ledgers and the balance sheets and so forth, I don't believe that's the intent. And certainly there's already existing confidentiality controls on those things anyhow. John Mataris, I believe, asks, how do we get a copy of the draft standard? John, that's available at www.iso.org. And we can add a link to that on our frequently asked questions section. Okay. Isabel Perry asks kind of an interesting question. Now that the management representative has been eliminated, have you given the opportunity of companies to reduce costs by eliminating the quality manager, eliminating the department? What will you communicate the companies to prevent them from doing such drastic changes? Isabel, that's an interesting question, and the implication, of course, is that quality is a burden for these companies. They're ISO certified because they have to be, and obviously there's a lot of companies out there that fit that description. In terms of how are we going to approach that as auditors, let's bear in mind, companies have to be prepared to show that they are fulfilling all of the requirements of the standard, all of the applicable requirements of the standard. Your processes have to be defined. Your processes have to be effective. If you can accomplish that with X number of individuals, that's fine. We have to respect that as auditors. But if we see deficiencies in your system, those things are going to be cited as findings. So if a company comes up to me as an auditor and says, well, I just let my quality manager go, fine, that's a strategic decision that you can make, but you need to be prepared to show me that you have an effective quality system. Okay, Lucy Pavlik asks, do we need a process map? Lucy, I believe you're referring to the interaction of processes as required under Section 4.2.2 subclause C of ISO 9001-2008. You are still going to be required to define what are your processes, what is the interaction between your processes, but as to do you have to have a map? No, you can accomplish that without a map per se. Okay, let's see what other questions we've got here. Okay, Maria Brito asks, are there tools that are going to be available that can be applied to risk approach? Maria, there's already certain disciplines that are in place. You mentioned the FEMA, which is obviously very much associated with automotive. The risk management report, which is part of ISO 13485. There's actually two standards that have been published on risk management, ISO 31000 and ISO 14971. But as I mentioned, none of these disciplines are necessarily mandatory. These are all things that you can do to show that you're managing risk, but as I hopefully made clear earlier, you have to only show that you're managing risk, and it does not have to be formal. So this is going to vary from company to company. Okay, Gail Wisniewski asks, will the management review input-output requirements change? Gail, our analysis has shown that for the most part, the content of the management review meeting is the same. There is some discussion now on risks and analysis of risks, but in general, the requirements have endured from the previous standard. Okay. Ed Gardner asks, what about the certification bodies change to stage 1 and 2 of the initial ISO certification? Undetermined at this time, Ed. We're in the midst of a transition to the ISO 17021 standard as well, and that's the standard that dictates stage 1 and stage 2 audit activity. As to how this is going to be impacted in terms of what content is to be reviewed at stage 1, undetermined at the moment, but we'll definitely keep you posted on that. Okay, we've got a question here from Edgar Rabasa from Mexico City. Hola. First question, will the new certification affect the pricing from PJR? undetermined at this time. I don't believe it should have any dramatic effect, but we simply do not know. Okay, William Polina asks, if we use a consulting service, will the consulting service assist in documentation changeover? I should think so. Obviously, the consulting groups are just as interested as we are in staying up to date on the changes to the standard and the new requirements. Okay, Latanya Holton asks, how is it that ISO 2015 does not require work instructions, procedures manual, or quality manual? Well, Latanya, those terms don't appear in the standard. They simply are not included in the standard. It says you will prepare documented information in some cases. You will identify your processes. You will control your processes, but it's not prescriptive. It says nothing about that you have to have one item or another to control your system. We are being very open to alternative approaches to managing a quality system. Okay. Dinesh Patel asks, our recertification audit is due in the fall, usually in September or October. Can we transition to 2015 during the recert audit? If you're talking about September or October of this year, Dinesh, undetermined. We don't know just how soon PJR is going to be ready for the transition. Obviously, we are targeting being ready as soon as possible. If you're speaking of recertification next year or the year after, absolutely. And that would probably be an ideal arrangement for completing your transition. Okay, Irene Graven asks, are there sample completed manuals online for the new standard? Irene, not that we have specifically prepared. And in terms of what the new quality manual will look like, again, that's going to be a bit down the road until we have the new standard. Okay, John Lowe asks, will the transition have to be audited all at once? Or can it be done as an updated surveillance audit? John, we do believe that we should be able to handle this transition over a period of surveillances. That would be very similar to how it was handled when companies transitioned to ISO 2000, for example. So the short answer to your question is no, it does not have to be done all at once, at least not based on the information that we have presently. Okay. Okay, Barry Carnes asks, do you recommend that all quality assurance managers or system managers get to a certification class to be registered as a certified internal auditor to ISO 2015? Barry, I think that's a great ideal if you can accomplish that, but based on the fact that it's not specifically required by the standard, I can't come out and say, yes, you should do that. Obviously, it's going to be a strategic decision. There's no doubt some expense associated with that. Obviously, the more experts on staff that you have, the better. Okay. Parvindir Bagal asks, can you explain how preventive action has been expanded in 2015? What is expected on the 2015 version on preventive action? Well, the term preventive action does not specifically appear in the new standard. What I mean by it's been expanded is risk aversion, risk management is now a system-wide ideal. It's something that's done throughout your quality management system. And the whole idea of what are the risks ahead of us and what actions can we take to avoid those risks, that's very much rooted in what companies have been doing for a long time under preventive action, very much rooted in those existing activities. So that's kind of the gist of why I say it's been expanded. Okay, let's see here. Okay, Patsy Dunn asks, with the elimination of records and procedures, does that mean that form numbers and revision levels and dates are not required? Interesting question, Patsy. The short answer to that question is you don't have to specifically have form numbers and specifically have revision numbers right on your documents itself, but you do have to show that your documents are controlled. If you choose to have, for example, a procedure for non-conforming product, you have to demonstrate that that procedure is controlled, that if it's updated, that you control the updates and ensure that the standard is, ensure that the procedure is updated at points of use. So are those things not required? No, but you still have to show that you're controlling the documents that you have. Tom Peterson asks, regarding the removal of the management rep, can we still have one main person coordinating this function? I do think the answer to that question is yes, Tom, but you're going to need to be prepared to show that your leadership team is involved in the system. You know, many times as auditors we'll go into a company and it's painfully obvious that it's been dumped on one person's shoulders. That cannot continue in the new standard. It has to be a leadership team. It has to be a team of people shouldering the load for running the quality system. Okay, let's see here. Randall Toth asks, the new standard must include commitment to satisfy applicable requirements and also commitment to continual improvement for the quality policy. Ours now has continual improvement and customer satisfaction. Do we have to change it? Randall, at the present time, we don't believe that you're going to have to change your quality policy statement. That may change as the interpretations are more widely known, but at the present time your quality policy statement should be able to remain unchanged. Okay. Juan Castaneda asks, permissible exclusions. Now that they're called non-applicables, how should they be documented in each section or as a summary for all the non-applicable areas? I would say that you can do it in whatever method makes the most sense to you and enables you to explain to the auditors what you're claiming a non-applicable for. Okay, Tracy Myers asks, we are due for a recertification in April of 2015. Am I correct in assuming that we will need to have the updates implemented? Tracy, the short answer to that question is no. You will be able to complete a recertification in April 2015. So that's this month. Okay. You will have to complete it to the ISO 2008 standard if it's this year. Perhaps you meant in April 2016. If it's April 2016, then still the answer is no. You can still have that audit be done to ISO 2008. Remember that ISO 9001-2008 is going to be a usable standard at least until mid-2018. So no, you can absolutely put off your transition until such time as you feel you are ready. Okay. Okay, and then I see you did correct yourself. April 2016. Understood. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. Okay, Robert Ingersoll asks, who will be responsible for handling the requirements related to audit findings, training, going on within the organization, having a central control point? Robert, let me again emphasize, it's not a case of you can't have a central control point. It's not a case of you can't have a key person. But it should not all fall to one person in terms of managing the quality system. That's what's being emphasized here. Okay. Savannah Thomas asks, will the transition audit be an additional audit or implemented into the standard audits? Savannah, the plan at this moment calls for transition to be part of the surveillance audit process, but that's not firm yet. We still need to have that ironed out in terms of what the official transition requirements are going to be. Okay. Maulesh Shah asks, what is the implemented date for ISO 2015? As of right now, they are targeting September of this year for the new standard to be published. Okay. Sharon Perkins asks, if I buy a draft standard, will updates be provided without charge? I believe the answer to that is no. You will have to purchase the additional standards if you wish. You may wish to wait to purchase a standard until the actual ISO 9001 document has been published. Okay. Rochelle Peterson asks, can a company get certified to ISO 9001-2008 after this September rather than moving straight into ISO 2015? Absolutely. ISO 9001-2008 will be available as a certifiable standard throughout this year, all of next year, and all of 2017 as well. There will no doubt be a cutoff at some point, but as to what that cutoff is going to be, we simply do not know as of yet. Okay, one final item we've got here from Mike Shuck. Will PJR have to complete an ANAB witness audit before they can audit to the new standard? At the present time, in terms of transitional requirements for PJR, these things are still being determined at this time. But obviously, we will share with you what we know when we know it. Okay, well, it would appear that we've answered everyone's questions. I'll again thank you for your time and advise you that the presentation will be available for download shortly after our conclusion here. Thank you. Have a good day.